Welcome to the NIHES graduation.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to the online graduation of the NIHES 2020. Welcome to our 80 graduates who will be awarded their diplomas today. Welcome to colleagues, family, and friends. I'd also like to say welcome to our distinguished guest, Professor Roel Coutinho, who will be giving the keynote address. Welcome to Wing Kuan Chung, who will be giving the student address, Professor Lexter Verdolf, Chairman of the NIHES Board, who will be presenting the awards, and welcome to the members of the graduation committee. I will introduce everyone as we go along. I am Miriam Hunning. I'm Director of the NIHES. I'm Director of the Clinical Epidemiology Specialization, and I'm Professor at the Erasmus Medical Center. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the people involved in making the NIHES program possible. This year was especially taxing with the corona pandemic. It was really amazing to see how everyone rose to the challenge and made the best of a very difficult situation. Our students had to switch at a moment's notice from classroom education to online education, and they had to do their research projects from home. Professors and lecturers, our teachers, had a major undertaking in switching to online teaching. Tutors had to shift to online tutoring. Program directors coordinated their specializations from home. The examination committee had quite a major task in ensuring that all exams were done in a legitimate manner. The education center staff, in particular Omira, Sean, and Marissa, took care of many administrative hassles. And last but not least, our NIHES staff, Annette, our 3 Astrats, Kim, Salima, Maka, Greg, Lena, Lainey, Zoya. Your dedication, your long hours, your time, your enthusiasm were all vital in making all of this possible. Special thanks to Salima for making this online graduation possible. Thank you all so much for your time and your effort. Turn to our attention to our graduates. First and foremost, congratulations. After a year of studying, for some of you 2 or even 3 years of studying, working on your master thesis, it is time to get the diploma, and you can be proud of your achievement. Graduation day is a day of celebration, but it's also a time for some reflection, a time to take stock of what you have completed and where your path is taking you. So I would like to invite you to reflect a little bit with me. What a year it has been. There was BC, and then there was AC. BC before Corona, AC after Corona. Tipping point in the Netherlands was like early March. And for years, public health epidemiologists and virologists, among others, have predicted a pandemic. And when it did arrive, everyone was scrambling to make sense of what was happening. Epidemiologists, statisticians, clinical researchers, public health epidemiologists, in other words, you, play a real important role in all of this. In predicting the course of the pandemic, in developing and analyzing interventions to curb the spread of the disease, but also ways of getting out of lockdown, in developing and evaluating diagnostic tests, and in designing randomized controlled trials to evaluate treatments. With your obtained knowledge, your skills, your insights, you are going to be sought after, and you're going to be needed. And I hope you can really contribute to finding our way out of this mess. In the meantime, the crisis has affected our lives profoundly. For one, online learning has flourished. Zoom and team meetings become the norm instead of the exception. No more travel to faraway places, although that's sometimes a bit of a shame. I enjoy seeing my colleagues in other places. And it's sort of turned to a virtual world. It reminds me a bit of the film, The Matrix. I'm sure you know the film. What I really find mind-boggling is how such a tiny little organism can create such havoc in our world. When you think of how many coronaviruses are out there, then it's like a big army working out against us, or a monster. Well, every crisis has a silver lining. There's a lot to be learned from the crisis. And apart from virology and public health epidemiology, we're learning about other diseases. So, for example, the NICU admissions dropped by 90% in some places, which really raises questions about what causes premature births? Could it have something to do with the lockdown measures? Admissions for myocardial infarctions were reduced by like 50% in some places. And again, that raises a whole lot of questions, very interesting questions and hypotheses. We're learning about how to organize responses to crises, and we're learning about pollution. Very interesting to see the reduction in pollution that occurred during the lockdown measures. So there's advantages and disadvantages to everything, and certainly to doing things online. It's efficient, but it's tough to really connect. And when the other thing I notice is that there's so much busyness that turns out to be superfluous. And I actually found that it helped me focus on the essentials, revisiting our values. I found certainly in the first few weeks of the pandemic and the lockdown, I kept thinking, well, what if I get COVID? And what if I need to be admitted to the ICU? And what if there's a shortage of ICU beds? Would I forego the ICU admission in favor of letting somebody younger go there? What if I die in a few weeks? What would I hope then that I had done now? Well, it was certainly not tidy up the house, nor was it clear out my inbox. But I did find that what I would really want to focus on is living a life of meaning, living with purpose, and connecting with myself, with nature, connecting with the people around me, my husband, my daughter, my son-in-law, my family, friends, connecting with my students, and connecting with my peers. And interacting with these people with respect, mindfully, hopefully in harmony. And when I really think about it, it really boils down to just one word, and that's love. Love is what it's all about. So it occurred to me that the pandemic was maybe Gaia's way of trying to bring our world back into balance. So, when populations grow, they grow exponentially, and then there comes a tipping point where everything collapses when you think about bacteria or wildlife. So it's sort of the question, is the human race at that point? Is the spread of the virus the natural consequence of the way societies have developed with their closeness and their interconnectedness? So this hectic and frantic speed at which we go across the planet. And it feels as if the pandemic is nature's way of saying, enough is enough. Time that Gaia gets some rest. Gaia wants to meditate, recover from burnout. So what I found the most striking in the first weeks of the pandemic is how human beings are resourceful, driven, creative. What I really appreciated was the camaraderie, the support, the compassion. And it was clear that physical distancing was not the same as social distancing. Social distancing is not something that we find acceptable. We want to be together. We want to connect. And it seemed as if the whole world was working together against this common enemy, the virus. And then came politics. Well, let's look at it there. Instead, I'd rather recall a quote from Gandhi and also Lao Tzu, who said that our beliefs lead to our thoughts, and our thoughts lead to our words lead to our deeds, and that leads to our actions, which lead to our habits, which become our traits, which finally become our character, which lead to our destiny. Which also suggests that if we visualize the world the way we would like to have it, then maybe our thoughts will lead to our actions that will lead us in the direction of this new world. Just a thought to leave you with. So once again, dear graduates of 2020, congratulations with your achievements. I sincerely hope you will find your path and you will find fulfillment in your life and meaning in your life. Good luck. So let's now continue with the most essential part of our program, congratulating each of the candidates. We will do this per specialty. Each of the program directors will have the opportunity to say something about their specialty, which will be followed by the names of the candidates receiving their diplomas in that specialty. So now I've put on my hat, well, actually my beret, as the program director of the track Clinical Epidemiology. So dear candidates of the Master of Health Sciences in the specialization Clinical Epidemiology, congratulations with your diploma. Having delved now into the intricacies of etiology, diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment, you are now ready to tackle a range of problems that cross your path. The pandemic, of course, being one of them. Now more than ever, your knowledge, your insights, your skills are needed in clinical practice, in health policy making. And the pandemic has really highlighted the value of research in clinical epidemiology. I sincerely hope that you can contribute to the improvement of health, and that not only improving the health of individual patients, but also the sustainability of our healthcare system in general, because that is sorely needed. So just a quick word on the future of the NIHES specialization in clinical epidemiology. I see it becoming ever more important, especially for those in healthcare professions. And whereas their clinical work contributes to the health of individuals, performing research can benefit multiple patients. And because many healthcare professionals have an ongoing clinical practice in faraway places, we're striving to make this program largely online and self-paced. And clearly the challenge in doing this is to maintain good interactions between the faculty and the students, maintaining student engagement, which is possible with modern technology, as we have seen. So the sudden switch to online teaching has really helped us to create this and to boost our efforts in this direction. So now I would like to name all of our candidates in clinical epidemiology who will be awarded their diplomas this year. Linda Al-Hassani, Adagja Elizabeth Baars, Lotte Martine Beck, Larissa Fabienne Monique de Groot, Gertrudis Elizabeth Benz Inalaf, Victoria Apollonia Annemarie Beunders, Elke Bouwens, Yuri van der Does, Janneke Gilden, Nienke Nekesa Hagedorn, Gwisette Pauline Janssens, Françoise Nelly Lee, Kevin Dennis Bastiaan van Leeuwen, Marlou Alexander Matthias Limpens, Johannes Sophia de Maat, Nathalie Mazurel, Elise van Milligen, Berthe Cornelie Oosterlo, Hugo Guillermo Guisada Pinedo, Aaltje Albertine Rijkse, Oscar Hernando Roa Duenas, Hieronymus Theodorus Wilhelmus Smele, Lisa Reino Steenkamp, Erik Ferdinand T., Selina Vlieger, Desiree Kartika de Vrede en Rama Josephine Wahab. Congratulations, everybody, and have a fantastic day. I would now like to introduce Pieter van Baal. Pieter van Baal is Associate Professor of Health Economics, and within the NIHES, he's the Program Director of Health Economics. and here you see him playing his guitar.
Congratulations to the class of 2020 NIHES graduates. This is a remarkable year to graduate, which unfortunately does not allow for a more personal graduation ceremony. However, this remarkable year also illustrates the relevance of the specialization you have chosen. The corona outbreak shows that health and economics cannot be analyzed separately, and that all decisions, whether these are made by individuals, doctors or policymakers, come of cost and benefits and winners and losers. Identifying these trade-offs and trying to value them is at the heart of the health economic analysis specialization. I hope that the lessons you have learned will help you in your further career. I hereby hand over virtually the diplomas. The graduates are Hanan Bozar, Esme Kirsten Juliette van der Poort, Elisa Frederik de Weert, Jethro Floyd Nooitmeer.
I would now like to introduce Professor Jan van Busbach. Professor van Busbach is Chair and Professor of Medical Psychology. Within the NIHES, he's the Program Director of the Specialization Medical Psychology. And here we see Jan hiking in a lovely place. Professor van Busbach.
Dear graduates, my name is Jan van Busbach, and it's a pleasure to see that despite all the problems in education caused by the corona pandemic, you have established your educational goal. If things get back normal, if ever, you will have a story to tell, and you will be blessed with the confidence that you are able to learn and adapt to the most odd circumstances. I'm representing here the specialty or track medical psychology. And as we have seen in the current days, how behavior in fact relates very much to diseases, especially infectious diseases. So that might be a very good choice for you whenever to consider if you want to do any further education. In any way, it is a new specialty and we are still in the process of refining it. For those who graduated in this specialization medical psychology, you can really call yourself pioneers in the field, as they have helped us shape the course. An example of this is our graduate of 2020, Margriet Lenkens, who made a switch between public health towards medical psychology. A PhD is about qualitative and quantitative research into support for adolescents with delinquent behavior. She is especially interested in the potential benefits of support by individuals with similar experience, so-called experimental peers, or ervaringsdeskundigen in Dutch. A true pioneer, I would say, and it's an honor to announce that Margriet Lenkens graduates today in the specialty medical psychology.
I would now like to introduce our distinguished guest and keynote speaker, Professor Roel Coutinho. Professor Coutinho is a physician and microbiologist. He's Professor of Epidemiology and Control of Infectious Diseases. He's affiliated with the University of Utrecht and the University of Amsterdam. He's former director of the Center for Infectious Disease Control of our National Institute of Public Health and the Environment, the RIVM. He will now speak to us and give the advice to the Young Scientist lecture. Professor Coutinho, the floor is yours.
Dear graduates, family members, and all others viewing this, I would say, rather unusual event, because as far as I know, this ceremony has never happened this way just online. And I really hope that it is the last time, but to be sure, that's impossible, because how can we predict how the COVID-19 pandemic will evolve? And that's also the topic I would like to start with. I have been working all my life in the epidemiology and control of infectious diseases. And like others working in this field, I knew that one day we would be confronted with a new pandemic. But what we are witnessing now is larger and more unsettling than I could imagine. The economic and social impact of COVID-19 is huge. It dominates our lives. It scares us. But scientifically, it's a fascinating time. If you enter the search term COVID-19 in PubMed, you will get more than 40,000 hits. Of course, all in the past 7 months since SARS coronavirus type 2 started to spread from Wuhan in China. An explosion of scientific activity, which reminds me of the early days of the AIDS pandemic 40 years ago. Everyone is looking at science to solve this crisis. Vaccines are being developed at an unprecedented speed, and laboratories all over the world are unraveling the natural history of the infection, how the coronavirus is attached to the cells, how it multiplies, how it gets out of cells, and that's all information that we need to identify urgently needed antivirals that specifically attack the virus. Now, laboratories are essential, but so is understanding the epidemiology of COVID-19, which is your profession and what you are interested in. There's a lot of temptation to rely on evidence from other respiratory viruses like influenza, but this is a new virus and it behaves differently. And also there's a striking and prominent role for modeling in estimating the impact of measures and predicting further spread. But without essential and good epidemiological and social behavioral data, modeling is flawed. It's not the mathematics which is the issue. It is all about assumptions. And without good epi data, models can be very, very misleading. Okay, this brief introduction brings me to my first advice to you as young scientists. Work on something relevant and add something new. Now that sounds as an open door, but choosing a topic of public health importance and bringing something new, that's what I mean. I'm an editor of a scientific journal for, I think, about 20 years now. And I see a lot of manuscripts, maybe, let's say, 7 a week. And what is striking is that a lot of manuscripts, well, maybe 1/3, are rejected because they just repeat what others have done already. And they are all rejected outright, even without peer review. And if they are peer-reviewed, then the most deadly comment of a reviewer is, oh, methodologically, it's very well done, it's a great study, but it adds nothing new to the field. And of course, we cannot all work on the big challenges of this time, like COVID-19 or AIDS or the lifestyle-associated diseases. You can also work on neglected tropical diseases or a rare genetic disease. But whatever you do not repeat what has been done by others already just because you have such a nice data set. Unravel new and unexpected risk factors. It will make it easier for you to publish your results in good journals. And keep in mind, it's not always about publishing. Research is not only about publishing. It is also, and maybe even more important, about the impact of your results on society. And that's called, you can look it up at the internet, science in transition. There's a lot of information on that. And if you just confirm what others have been done already, what does it help us? It does not have to be a big step forward. That's rare. I mean, big steps are rare in science. It can be a very small step, a very, very small step, but make a step. Some authors overdo it and add in their discussion to our knowledge. This is the first study that shows, etc. Don't write that. First, it may not be true. You may have missed some article in a less well journal. And second, even if it is true, it shows itself from the data. It's not necessary to emphasize it, and I can tell you it's a bit of an irritating statement. And some scientific journals now even say, we don't like that, we don't want such a statement. Okay, so working on public health challenge is motivating, and if it is big, it's even more motivating. But if it's small, it can also be motivating and is rewarding. But only if you dare to draw clear conclusions from the results of your study. And that brings me to my second advice. Be clear and bold in your discussions, and especially in your conclusions. Epidemiologists have the tendency to be extremely careful in their conclusions. Limitations of this study. That's often the longest paragraph in the discussion of epidemiological articles. Your supervisors will certainly tell you, write it carefully, stress that this paragraph, it's very, very important. But seeing a lot of epidemiological manuscripts as an editor and reading then this paragraph, I sometimes wonder, why did you do this study? I mean, if you're oh so defensive about your results, I mean, we all know about the biases. And of course, epidemiological associations cannot be interpreted as causal, or very, very rarely. But your results will only have an impact if you draw firm conclusions. And that is necessary. And a lot of my PhD students struggled especially with the last part of their thesis, discussion and conclusions. And I always tell them, you have written articles, now in the discussion, it's up to you. This is really to come from you. You have been studying all this. What is your conclusion? What conclusion can you draw from all the years that you have been working? And most of them to tell you, stick carefully to the data and scare away from clear conclusions because they're so afraid to make mistakes and being attacked. But science is about discussions. Different opinions are needed to move us forward. So formulate hypotheses in the conclusion of your studies. That's what helps us. Dare to be provocative. Stimulate discussions. Don't stay on the beaten track. What we say in Dutch, de gebaande paden. It's dull and it's not innovative. Okay, that's was the second advice. Now the third advice is work together with other disciplines. Most of my scientific work has been on HIV/AIDS. And we started in the early 80s, that's about 40 years ago, with a multidisciplinary research group when we knew very little about this new disease. Even the virus was not yet identified. And epidemiological data were essential at the start of this pandemic to be able to inform risk groups how to avoid infection with this new virus, which already we thought it must have been a virus. So we set up longitudinal studies gathering epidemiological data among the main risk groups, men who have sex with men and injecting drug users. And I worked closely together with immunologists, with virologists, with clinicians, and that turned out to be very, very fruitful to help unravel the natural history and the pathogenesis of this new disease. And closely working together with this discipline learned me a lot, and it forced me to look from a completely different angle. Now, epidemiologists who've never been in a laboratory can draw completely wrong conclusions. If they get results from a lab, they consider that as facts. But in reality, there's a lot of variation and interpretation in laboratory work. Mistakes can also be made. And to understand these issues, I always advise epidemiologists, do not spend all your time behind the screen. Spend some time in a laboratory. And if you work with a disease, go to a hospital and sit with a clinician so that you learn something about the disease. Otherwise, you don't know what you're talking about. Only looking at your screen and analyzing data, it is not enough. And then there's another issue. I'm coming from a biological background myself. I have been working in a laboratory. That was my origin, and I have been working as a clinician. And when we started longitudinal studies, we did not include social sciences. in our multidisciplinary HIV/AIDS studies. And that was a mistake that was actually corrected by representatives of the main risk groups. How can you study a sexually and blood-borne transmitted infection without understanding the behavior of us, the risk groups, they said. Man who has sex with man, injecting drugs, you know nothing about us. So they were right, actually. And so a bit contre cœur, we included social scientists. And I can tell you it was absolutely essential. It helped us to draw meaningful conclusions. And for COVID-19, it's the same story. For example, for models, you need information about how people interact. And that differs by age group. It differs by social economic status. It differs by ethnicity. So you have to take in care all this information. And the same is true for lifestyle-associated diseases. And there is a tendency in science to put social science completely at the bottom, basic science at the top. Then comes clinical science, then comes epidemiology, and completely below that is social science. It's a strange hierarchy, and I would even say it's an arrogant hierarchy, because working together with all these different disciplines, respecting what each can add, gives, in my experience, the best results. Okay, my last advice is a light one. Do not completely plan your future and catch opportunities. In the past years, I have many times participated in graduation ceremonies for medical doctors at the University of Utrecht. And each time, I was impressed by what people had already done before graduating. Unbelievable. They went to this country, that country, spent 3 months there, 6 months there. But what I found also striking is many of these students are completely planning their future. First, I'm going to do this. Next year, that. In 5 years, I will be there. In 10 years, I will be there. Of course, it's good to plan, but you can't plan it all. Life doesn't work that way, and neither does your scientific career. I can tell you, I started my career as a medical doctor somewhere in Africa without any plan to do research. Then I worked in a laboratory, and I found that extremely dull, and scientifically nothing came out of it. And only after specializing as a microbiologist, I started to work at the Public Health Service of Amsterdam in infectious diseases, a step which many considered as a waste of my career, because infectious diseases was something of the past, and working in public health, the department was a completely dull thing. But why did you do that? Of course, it all was different. Amsterdam was the hotspot of HIV/AIDS, and so I was in the middle of that, for both for research and for control of the disease. I was certainly lucky, if you can say that between brackets. But I'm sure that all of you will get opportunities. But you have to see them and you have to catch them. Look out for opportunities, because they are the ones, and they cannot always be in your present line of research. Maybe it's a different line. Then, if they cross your path, see them, take risks, and grab them, because when they come along, that is your chance. So, and it will make your scientific life interesting, and what is maybe more important also, enjoyable. So what do you need more? Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best.
Next, we will hear from Professor Maaike van Nooy. Professor van Nooy is Professor of Population Imaging. She's a neuroradiologist and head and neck radiologist. And in the NIHES, she's the director of the clinical research. Here's Maaike with her daughter Isa, wrapped up in their new hobby, Twinning is Winning. Professor van Nooy.
Congratulations to the class of 2020 NIHES graduates. Putting aside for a moment the challenging times we live in, I hope that in 20 years from now, you will remember this year most of all as the year in which you obtained your NIHES degree, which kickstarted your career. It is times like these which highlight once again how important the training is that you received. The Research Master in Clinical Research has prepared you to design and conduct studies which are now needed more than ever. What is the best treatment for critically ill patients? Why do some persons develop more severe symptoms than others? And what is their prognosis after recovery? Today, in this unique online graduation ceremony, I congratulate the class of 2020 with their obtained degree, and I wish them all the best in their careers. To quote Dr. Seuss, "Today is the day you're off to great places." I virtually hand over the diplomas now. Our graduates in clinical research are Chloe Lien Sparreboom, Aniek Brink, Stefan Büttner, Wing Kuan Chung, Jelle Corneel van Dongen, Laura Elisabeth Maria Eurelings, Anne Frudiger, Boris Galjart, Wouter Jeroen van Genuchten, Siewert Justin Fredericus Hermans, Toya Anna Jansen, Miguel Cesar Jansen, Matthijs Lucas Jansen, Daniel Peter Valentin Lambrichts, Mallory Sanyigi Lokyung-Shu, Kirsten Ilse Milene Lohman, Rahatullah Muslem, Grace de Castillo Omes, Niels van der Schacht, Kimberly Laura Juliette Schmid, Annebrecht Treling, Mila Sophie Belling, Roxanne Denise Zwijnenburg. I congratulate you once again and wish all of you the best of luck in your careers.
I would now like to introduce Arfan Ikram. Professor Ikram is professor and chair of the Department of Epidemiology. He's also director of the Erasmus Summer Program. In the NIHES, he's the program director of the specialization Epidemiology. Here's Arfan with his newest hobby, which he started during the corona crisis. I just wonder who his virtual opponent is. A coronavirus? I also found a picture of his two princesses sitting in a windowsill on the 28th floor.
Dear candidates, my heartiest congratulations with achieving your Master of Science degree. This is a major milestone, and for many of you, it is your first milestone as you step in the field of quantitative medicine. Some of you will be continuing in a PhD trajectory, but even for those that with this master's want to, for instance, go into health policy or in the private sector, the Master of Science will really help you move your career forward. Especially in these times, as we sit here socially distanced from each other in this corona era, epidemiology has never been as important as it is now. The big questions pertaining to association versus causality, these are the questions that, especially in this specialization of epidemiology, were the core theme, the themes surrounding causal inference. You've been trained with all this knowledge, and I'm sure you'll be ready to really make a difference as we all cope with the challenges the COVID pandemic is posing us. Again, my heartiest congratulations, and I look forward to collaborating with many of you in the near future. The graduates for this year in the specialization epidemiology are the following: Bernice Christine van Aken, Joyce van Arendonk, Caroline Annemarie Bulstra, Maud de Feiter, Janke Elisabeth Labuschagne, Angelo Maria Pezzulo, Gwen Rachel Tasing, Lieke Marieke Kuiper, Noreen Zafar Siddiqui, Nina Wagemaker. Again, congratulations and thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Wing Kuang Chung. Wing is a graduate in the Master of Science in Clinical Research this year, and he will be giving the student address. Wing, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, my dear fellow graduates, I want to thank NIHES for the opportunity to have attended this prestigious institution following courses from renowned professors all over the globe. I want to give special thanks to my daily supervisor, Erwin Waarsing, my tutor, Professor Fernando Rivadeneira, my friends and fellow students who have supported me and stimulated the most competitive side of me to work harder, perform better, and of course my colleagues at the 27th floor for the discussions on science and general life and creating the perfect atmosphere and enjoying my days, and I must admit some evenings there too. My name is Kuang Chung and I started the Research Master Health Sciences in 2015 together with my Masters in Medicine. And contrary to what my name suggests, I'm Dutch, born in Spijkenisse, a town next to Rotterdam. My parents are from Vietnam, a country in Southeast Asia. My father fled Vietnam in the aftermath of the war, and by completely a random chance, my father got picked up by a Dutch ship and ended up in the Netherlands. I was born some years later. Although my parents never attended higher education after primary school, my father always stimulated us to think for ourselves. Don't just accept what other people say, keep thinking critically for yourself. I fondly remember, very typically, us working on simple math problems, but also creative pursuits with our drawing sessions of various animals such as ducks and swans. I was constantly learning about all kinds of topics. And this general curiosity has persisted. And during my medical studies, in my third year of medicine, by complete chance I got placed in a mini elective called Ever Thought of Doing Research. A new world opened up for me to discover and to explore it. A creative outlet to practice my medical knowledge, which I was not familiar with in medicine. Clinical practice in the hospitals across all fields of medicine is built around guidelines. As Professor Hoffman used to say, we are standing on the shoulder of giants. We have built our medical practice by discovering truths and acquiring new knowledge, building on top of previous discoveries since ancient times. This ancient civilization has been fascinating me ever since my first lesson in Latin and Greece in high school. When people used to ask me what I wanted to do after high school, I used to jokingly say, I want to achieve apatheia, a term used by Stoic philosophers describing a state free of irrational passions, which is not the same as apathy. And recently I read a quote derived on Plato's account about Socrates, a Greek philosopher, in which he states, I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. This quote kept me thinking, and actually describes the process of research perfectly. I think getting familiar with the world of research, you realize also this is very true. The more you learn and do research about a subject, the more you realize how little actually you know. And subsequently, doing research, instead of giving you answers, gives you more questions. And it was a recurrent theme during my time at NIHES. The research subsists of a few main mandatory courses, but for the remainder, we were allowed to choose our own electives, essentially making it a very personalized program, tailored to each student. Our curiosity was allowed to roam free, to learn various general topics, or very specific statistical techniques. And every time I learned something general in the main courses, I would dive deeper in the highly specific courses, mostly focusing what I could use in my medical career later. Only focus on one goal, to acquire the most clinical useful skills to be a good doctor, and even eventually taking up a third master to learn about health economics and policy. I was planning every hour of the day, planning in tight Excel sheet, every single detail, it was in the sheet. I was in the medical library day and night. I had a great time actually though, making a lot of friends, all kind of nationalities, from all kind of different years, medicine, other masters. It truly felt like a family to me. And most often even including dinners in the library together. And a lot of fun. Then this went on for almost a year, and it was until I got hit by a car in the beginning of the summer in 2017. I was such an ever-presence in the medical library, even one of the emergency doctors said she recognized me from somewhere. And luckily I only ended up with bruises, some temporary back pain and episodes of dizziness, which made my thesis work impossible that summer. This accident made me realize there's more than my career. So focused on my goal, it was out of proportion. I got just used to telling myself I can take it easier later. And while recovering, I got asked to teach a week-long course about disaster medicine in Colombia to medical students coming from the whole Latin America, as I had been giving training in the Netherlands in the past year. At first, I wasn't sure about this. Was I fitting up? Wasn't I supposed to do less medical-related things? And honestly, I was a little bit scared. Never been outside of Europe, except Vietnam, where my grandparents live. And coincidentally, I ran into my neighbor, who I knew from med school, who just came back from Colombia, actually. And she took away all my doubts and convinced me to go. And I decided there would be a good mini break from my unfruitful attempts on writing my thesis papers. When I first arrived in Colombia, I noticed that the other Dutch trainer and I were walking so fast, we were continuously stepping on the heels of our lovely Colombian hosts. After 2 weeks, I quickly picked up some Spanish words after being completely immersed with Spanish-speaking students, chatting to each other in the small breaks. And also I followed a language learning app, Duolingo, in the past before. This way I got to learn the culture more in depth, the Colombian culture in particular. In the Netherlands, I grew up with this Western mentality of high output, doing something productive 24/7. I tended to feel guilty if I didn't do something productive. Not taking the time to properly rest, to refuel your energy, relax the mind, no time to reflect, at least not giving it enough importance to allocate free time for it in my Excel sheet. I noticed it's quite different in Colombia. Everyone just walks his own pace, not being affected by our pacey Dutch legs, even when they're being stepped on their heels. There's a Zen proverb that goes something like this. If you don't have time to meditate for an hour every day, you should meditate for 2 hours. This seems contradictory at first, but just like having sufficient time to relax, to recharge after a day of intense work, I noticed I'm much more productive when I spend some time doing exercise, making time for intro and outrospection, and whatever works for you, which in turn will save you much more time in your day-to-day profession, making me and you a better and healthier physician and researcher in the end. I'm not saying one culture is better than the other. And when I asked around my international research group about their experiences and their biggest culture differences when they first came to the Netherlands, a female researcher said to me, semi-seriously, I want to have the confidence of a Dutchman. All jokes aside, I think we can all learn from each other. And that's one of the many reasons I like medicine and research, where medicine is like a universal language we all understand, no matter where you're from. I'm truly proud to be part of NIHES and the Erasmus Medical Center, where this diversity is fully free to flourish and prosper. Thank you for your attention, and good luck, my fellow graduates, with the rest of your career.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a very special guest, Nathalie Tertegan. Nathalie is an epidemiologist. She works in our Department of Epidemiology at the Erasmus MC, and she's also a NIHES alumnus. Today, she's going to share yet another talent she has, playing piano. You can hear her quite often behind the white piano within the hall of the Erasmus MC. Today, she's going to provide us with a musical intermezzo.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations with this achievement. Hopefully, this will be the start of a new shining career for you. As an alumni of NIHES, it's an honor for me to present to you a small musical gift. It's Liebestraum from Liszt. I hope you like it.
Next, we will hear from Professor Frank van Lente. Professor van Lente is Professor of Social Epidemiology, and he's the Program Director of Public Health Epidemiology. Here we see him on stay vacation.
Dear all, what a wonderful day it is. First of all for you, but also for me as the Program Director of Public Health Epidemiology, for NIHES, but certainly also for the world outside the academic buildings you've spent so much time on in the past years. I would like to congratulate you very much with your major achievement. Very well done. Early March, the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte made scientific evidence the basis of his policy reaction to the COVID crisis in the Netherlands. He faced the difficulty, however, that the government had to take 100% policy decisions based on only 50% knowledge. He could not have made more clear how we need scientific evidence to handle the crisis, how much we need public health experts in order to tackle major societal challenges, how much we need you. With the knowledge you acquired, my hope and my advice to you is not to relax, to remain involved, to actively contribute in any way to help solve urgent public health problems. The crisis made two things very clear. Identifying a problem is one thing, but implementing evidence-based solutions is really another. This counts for COVID-19, but also for many other public health challenges. Throughout your study, you learned about monitoring, surveillance of health problems, about identifying the most important determinants, and about the effectiveness of policies and interventions. At NIHES and in our specialization, we aim at making the connections between these three elements even stronger. We strive for a generation of public health experts with skills leading to systematically identifying appropriate solutions for the challenges we face in public health. And secondly, as the debate between public health strategies and economic consequences is ongoing, it is very important to realize that public health epidemiology should not be an isolated field of research. We continuously need collaborations. So please, think about the graduates from all the other specializations. Keep the contacts warm. You will need each other. But also realize that determinants and solutions on public health challenges can be outside of the health domain and truly require interdisciplinary approaches. In our track, we have the ambition to increasingly benefit from this intensive interdisciplinary collaborations. For today, this is perhaps more than enough advice. It is time for you to once again realize that you have done a great job, an excellent job. It is time to be proud on yourself as much as your family and friends will be on you. My sincere congratulations to all of you. Zoe, Willemijn, Alexiou. Maria Golzo. Lily Laura Kokai. Angenita Willemijne van Lunteren. Anoy Tiwari. Sri Lak Nanjan Chandran. I really hope you enjoyed the time you were with us at NIHES. And I would like to emphasize that I hope to hear from you again in the future, in whatever position you hold. But for now, congratulations.
We will now hear from Professor Fernando Rivadeneira. Professor Rivadeneira is Professor of Translational Skeletal Genomics. He's the Program Director of Genomic and Molecular Epidemiology. And here we see him in a beautiful faraway place.
Dear candidates, 2020 has brought upon a special edition of our NIHES graduations. Our NIHES Director, Professor Huning, has worked very hard with the rest of our NIHES staff to make these not just as special as our past editions, but in fact make it absolutely memorable, full of creativity and the personal touch of faculty and students. So thank you all. Also, think not on what has been taken from you during this pandemic period, but rather reflect on how this period is reshaping our way of living and building the important quality of resilience in our souls. As director of the track Genomic and Molecular Epidemiology, I would like to provide this audience, whether you are a graduating student, relative, friend, or colleague, with a glimpse of this fascinating field. This track prepares students to frame research, your epidemiological research, with the understanding of the influence of nature, genetics, versus nurture, environment, across your health outcomes. In time, it has become clear that most disease processes are in fact a combination of an individual's susceptibility and the interaction with the environment. Call it lifestyle or external agents like bacteria and, of course, viruses. It is genetics to a large extent what explains why some people develop COVID-19 and others do not. Why few people develop adverse reactions to a medication used by millions who do not. Why someone with a healthy lifestyle can fall sick, or while some lucky individuals do not, despite sustained unhealthy behaviors. On the long term, the field seeks translating these genomic and molecular discoveries into a better healthcare of the population, and especially of the individual patient. In the meantime, I will ask you to reflect on two thoughts. One, the need of cherishing the ability to adapt in order to prevail. And the situation we're living is a great example. And second, realize it is not anymore a quest for the survival of the fittest, but now it's all about survival of the smartest. So for you, becoming a leader starts today. Finally, I would like to present the students of the Genomic and Molecular Epidemiology track. They are few, not because genetics has faded away, but on the contrary, because it has irreversibly merged with all other branches of epidemiology. And their names are Elisabeth Vicker Diemer, Sven Hertz, Annekin Eefke Hepke Harman, and Partha Haldar. Congratulations to you all.
I would now like to introduce Professor Dimitris Rizopoulos. Professor Rizopoulos is Professor and Program Director of Biostatistics. Here we see Dimitris with his oldest daughter.
Dear graduates, I would like to congratulate you for finalizing your studies today. The last years required a lot of effort from you, but they are rewarded today with a distinguished degree. I know that your statistics courses troubled you a little bit, but I hope that you see today what is the important use of these courses. I wish you all the best for your future career plans.
The NIHES Awards will now be presented by Professor Lex Burdoff. Professor Burdoff is Professor of Determinants of Population Health. He's Chair of the Department of Public Health, and he's Chairman of the NIHES Board. Here in this picture, he shows that he built a wooden boat together with a friend, and the boat now sails somewhere in Friesland.
Good afternoon, everyone, for this last part of the ceremony. I would like to take this time to hand out virtually the NIHES Awards for Best Papers. Each year we hand out these awards for best papers, and each year we announce a new jury to make sure that there is a fair allocation of these awards. The jury this year consisted of Mirjam Hoening, Sonja Swanson, and Kamran Ikram. And we have received a lot of nominations, I think in total 11. And it's quite interesting that if you ask the supervisors to nominate candidates for an award, the kind of descriptions that are not discriminative. So the kind of elements that they write down that are present in almost any of these nominations. And that tells, I think, it tells me a little bit what the characteristics are of this group of students of this year. So, for example, all the nominations mentioned, this is an extremely hard-working student. So, congratulations to you all that you have really put in the effort to do your research. The second most used word was enthusiastic. Yes, I would think, you know, if you do a NIHES course and you are entering research, that you are truly enthusiastic, because that's what our education is all about. The third most used word was independent person. And that, I think, is very important. It shows you that you are all independent, inquisitive minds, that you're curious to know, that you want to embark on new methods, new knowledge, and that truly, let's say, separates the researchers from other groups of people in society. So, class, well done. However, now we have to select a few persons who will be granted the award based on the characteristics that do discriminate. And the first award I would like to announce is the award for best paper of participants in a research master. And the two very important characteristics that determined this award was, one, that in this paper a new statistical method was used that was not covered in the NIHES courses. And you may wonder, is that possible after all these courses we had on statistics? Yes, it is possible. And this candidate used principal component analysis as an intriguing technique to summarize different measures into one. And that's actually the second very interesting part of this paper, that this candidate used an overall measure of calcification burden, a kind of biomarker of the calcification process in different parts of the human body. And she has called this the C factor, thinking of calcification. It's a very good paper. My only piece of advice would be to not call it the C factor, but think about a little bit about your own marketing, call it the L factor. And that's because I'm proud to announce that the winner of the Research Master Best Paper Award of NIHES is Lieke Kuiper for her paper C factor, a biomarker for systemic arterial calcifications. Congratulations, Lieke. I cannot hand out the award physically, but I think it's, you know, this virtual presentation hopefully will be a good replacement. And the second award I would like to hand out is the Post-Initial Master Best Paper Award. Basically, the PhD students who embark on a 3 or 4 year project and who write probably their first paper during the NIHES course. And again, worked independently, were enthusiastic, very good attributes, but you know by now, that doesn't separate any of you because you all have these characteristics. This candidate stood out because she coordinated a large study in 8 European countries. And that really is amazing to conduct a multi-center studies in 8 European countries. That also shows us one of the I think the basic attributes, basic skills that you need to have if you want to have a career in epidemiology. We tend to forget that the hard part of epidemiology always is an appropriate data collection. And she managed that very well. Second, I personally was impressed with the extremely high scientific integrity of her research. So in the appendices of that paper, there are detailed statistical analysis plans per protocol. So you write a protocol before you embark on the analysis where you very clearly stipulate how you're going to do the analysis. So no ad hoc analysis. It was all thought out very well from the start. And the third aspect, which made this paper a clear favorite, was that it gives extremely good insight into variation of antibiotic prescription, which is a hot topic in medicine. So I'm very pleased to announce that the winner of the Post-Initial Master Best Paper Award of NIHES is Nienke Hagendoorn for her paper Variation in Antibiotics Prescription Rates in Febrile Children Presenting to Emergency Departments Across Europe, a multi-center observational study. Congratulations, Nienke. And I hope there will be a time where we can physically hand out the award to you. So this brings me to the end of the award ceremony. It's the end of the Friday afternoon. So I think it will be a time now for you to start thinking about the weekend. I will do, as you can see, I will change into my outfit that I use in leisure time. And I wish you all a very great weekend. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of the NIHES Graduation 2020 ceremony. Once again, candidates, congratulations and good luck on your path. Let the party begin.